What if you already know things you have no logical way of knowing? Not intuition as a soft feeling, not a hunch, but full, complex, structured information, arriving complete before you have any reference point for it. Here is a documented case. A child, small town in Montana. No exposure to classical music, no concerts, no recordings, no music education. And yet, she heard symphonies, not fragments. Full orchestral arrangements, layered, complete, arriving whole. Scientists would call that impossible. This channel is interested in what science hasn't explained yet. Let's start with what we can measure. Everything vibrates. Every object, every cell, every living system oscillates at a specific frequency. This is not metaphor. This is foundational physics. The human nervous system is a detection apparatus. It is constantly scanning its environment, processing vibrational data at speeds and scales that conscious awareness never registers. You are receiving information right now that you will never consciously process. You already know this from experience. You walk into a room and feel the atmosphere shift before anyone speaks. You sense tension between two people without a word being exchanged. You think of someone and your phone rings. These are not anomalies. They are not coincidences. They are your receiver working exactly as it was designed to work. The question is not whether you receive. The question is, what is your range? The child in Montana had an unusually wide range. She had not yet been taught to compress it. This capacity to receive structured information through frequency has been documented across cultures for thousands of years, and in the 20th century, systematically dismissed. Pythagoras in the 6th century BC argued that the universe was organized by mathematical harmonics. That sound was not just a byproduct of the physical world. It was its organizing principle. His students were trained to perceive frequency as information. Ancient Egyptian temples were not merely architectural achievements. Researchers have measured resonant frequencies inside the burial chambers of the Great Pyramid that correspond precisely to the theta brainwave state, the state associated with deep meditative access, expanded perception, and information retrieval. Medieval monks encoded specific tone sequences into their chants, what we now call solfeggio frequencies. Modern researchers have documented measurable effects on cellular repair, emotional regulation, and gene expression. This knowledge was preserved in sound for centuries because it worked. Then in 1939, a committee met. A standard was set. The global tuning of music was shifted to 440 Hz. The frequencies that had been in use for centuries were replaced, and the ancient knowledge was reclassified as superstition, as coincidence, as the kind of thing serious people do not discuss. We've covered that history in detail in another video. What matters here is the pattern. Every time humanity gets close to understanding frequency as a transmission medium, the knowledge gets contained. The receiver gets compressed. The range gets narrowed. Here is how compression works. You are born with a receiver, wide open, no filter on what arrives, no learned dismissal of what cannot be immediately explained. Then the education begins, not the kind in classrooms necessarily, though that too. The deeper education, the one that teaches you what counts as real, what qualifies as knowledge, what you are allowed to trust. Every time you have a knowing, a sense, a perception, information that arrives before evidence, and you dismiss it as imagination, you compress your range, you narrow the aperture, you make the receiver smaller. The child in Montana had not yet been through that compression. She received the symphony because she had not yet been taught that receiving it was impossible. Frequency work, real frequency work, is not about adding something new. It is about removing the compression, restoring the range you started with, opening back up to what was always arriving. Your receiver was not broken, it was narrowed. And narrowing can be undone. So what does it mean, for you, that a child in Montana heard a symphony she had never heard? It means the information was always there. It means the architecture of what she would spend her life building, the frameworks, the systems, the pattern recognition, was transmitted to her before she had the language for it, before she had the platform, before anyone gave her permission. And it means the same may be true for you. The knowing you've dismissed as imagination, the sense you've called a coincidence, the information that arrived before you had any logical framework for it, that was not noise. That was signal. You have been receiving your whole life. You were just taught to distrust the transmission. Frequency knowledge exists to give you back the context your receiver needs, the history that was hidden, the science that was suppressed, the framework for understanding what you already sense but haven't had language for. Your range is wider than you were told. It always was. If this resonated, subscribe to Frequency Knowledge, new transmissions every week. The link in the description will take you to a free frequency assessment. Discover where you're operating from right now and what expanding your range actually looks like. This is the work. Welcome to it.